everyone, it's Hannah from Handjan Crochet, and today we are making this really quick and easy chunky crochet blanket together. Now for this I have chosen to use Amigo yarn, which is from Hobie, and it is a super bulky, so a category 6 weight yarn, so it works up really quickly. It's 100% acrylic and has the most beautiful colours to choose from. To go along with your yarn, you're going to need a 10mm crochet hook, or the hook that meets the gauge. So this is a P crochet hook from Furls. Then we'll also need a pair of scissors, a needle for your ends, but big enough to fit this yarn through it. And then just one stitch marker will help us out too. So if you look in the description below this video, you'll see all the list of materials that you will need for whichever size that you are making. You'll also find links below for where to find the pattern, whether you want to read it on my blog or whether you want to purchase the PDF. All the links for that information is in the description below too. Now for whichever size of blanket you're choosing to make from the pattern, they all use the same main stitch pattern, and they all work in multiples of 3. So the width of your blanket will always be a stitch multiple of 3, and you can change that in any way you like. And then the height of your blanket will always be a multiple of 2 rows. So you'll always need to work an even number of rows, and stitches need to be in a multiple of 3. So you can really adapt this pattern to be any shape or size that you like, but there are tons of options within the pattern, so make sure you go and check there. So I'm just going to work on camera here to show you a small stitch sample, but the one that I have made in the images is the Lovey size, and so I have 45 stitches in the width of my blanket for that one. But you go with whichever size that you would like to make with the yarn weight that you have chosen. All of our blankets, regardless of which size you're making, begin with a row of foundation half double crochet stitches. So we are going to put a slip knot on the hook, and then we are going to chain 2. And then what we need to do is work into this second chain from the hook, so 1, 2 chains there, but what we want to do is look for the back bump of it. So this is the part, I'm going to really pull it apart so you can see, this is the part of the stitch that we need to work into. So we need to yarn over, find that back bump, pop our hook in, then we're going to yarn over and pull through. So now we have 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through just the first loop on the hook, and that will make us a chain ready for our next stitch. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook, and that creates our first foundation half double crochet there. Then what we're going to do to work our second stitch is yarn over, and we're going to work into that chain that we just created. So it's easy to see that first loop of it, but what we actually also need to do is go into this loop of it as well. So we're going to put our hook into these longer nails, are quite useful actually. Look, I can poke all the way through. So we're going to work so that our hook goes through this one and this one here. So we yarn over, we pop through that chain that we made there. We're going to yarn over and pull through, and then we repeat the process that we just did. We yarn over and pull through 1, and we yarn over and pull through 3, sorry. So that has now made us 2 stitches. And so you just carry on repeating that process. So once more we'll do it, yarn over, and then we go through that chain, making sure we catch both parts of it there. Yarn over and pull through. We yarn over and pull through 1, and we yarn over and pull through all 3. And that has made 3 foundation half double crochets. So carry on working for as many as you need for the pattern. For the Lovey size that I made, I needed to do 45 in this weight of yarn, but you'll find all of the numbers in the written pattern to tell you for the size that you're making, or you can just make it to the width that you would like it to be in a multiple of 3. So I'm just going to work a few more, and then I will turn and just do a small swatch to show you the main stitch pattern for the blanket. Okay, so I have now worked 12 stitches there, and I'm going to turn and begin row 2. Now with our half double crochet stitches, we are going to be using every loop that is on offer for us here. And when we're working in rows, when we turn over, we need to remember the anatomy of the stitches so we get our stitches in the right place. So as with any stitch, when you turn it on its end, you're going to have a front loop and a back loop. So let me grab a needle and I'll show you what I mean. So on our end here, we have the front loop, which is this one here, and then we have the back loop, which is this one here. And then with a half double crochet, when we're working in rows, we've turned and we have this extra loop here, which is right at the front, so which is facing us, and that is called the third loop. So again, we have our back loop, our front loop, and our third loop here. So this row 2, is going to use all of those, and we're going to use them in sequence. We're going to chain 1 to get ourselves going, and then we're going to do a half double crochet in the back loop of this first one here. Then we're going to do a half double crochet in the front loop of the next one. So if we turn, we have our back loop and then our front loop. So go for that front loop there. And then we're going to use the third loop of the next stitch. So that's the one very at the front of our work here facing us. And that is your sequence for the whole of that row. So you're going to go to the back loop of the next one, then the front loop of the next one, and the third loop of the next one. So just those sets of 3, working all the way along to the end. Then when we finish that row, we're ready to turn. And then all of our odd rows are going to be exactly the same. They're going to be a chain 1, and then we're going to work a half double crochet into the back loop only of all of the stitches. So all the way across now we go into that back loop. And that gives us this lovely texture. And now this becomes the right side of our work, because this is where, well, both sides have texture, but this has more texture. And now for this last stitch, it's entirely up to you. You can go into the back loop, but that can sometimes end up giving you a bit too much space here at the end. So what I might do is go into the full stitch, so the front and the back loops there, and just work our final half double crochet, making sure that it stands up to the height of the row that you have just made. So that's row 3 complete. Now before we begin row 4, I wanted to recommend that you actually put a stitch marker in that stitch, that last stitch of row 2 here, because that's where the patterning, as it were, begins. And what we need to do is keep track of where the pattern begins again, because it's a six row repeat. And I'll show you once we get there how then it makes it easier, so you're not counting when you're doing lots and lots of rows how many repeats of that you've done. So then for row 4, we are going to do very similar to row 2, but instead of beginning with the back loop, we're going to begin with the front loop. So our sequence just changes and notches along one, and we start with the front loop, the third loop, and then the back loop. Front, back, third. And that repeats all the way across. So we chain 1, we work into that front loop to start with, and then into the third loop, and then twist over and we go into the back loop. So front, third, and back. Our front, our third, and our back. And repeat all the way across. And then when we're at the end of row 4, we're going to turn. Now row 5 is a repeat of row 3. So we've chained 1 and we're going to half double crochet in the back loop only of each of the stitches. Then once you've completed row 5, we're ready to turn again. And row 6, carries on shifting that repeat. And so now we're going to begin in the third loop. So we'll go third loop, back loop, front loop for this repeat. So here's our third loop to begin with, and then our back loop, and then our front. Our third, our back, and the front. So just carry on all the way across again. So now we're ready to work our repeats. Our next row is going to be a repeat of row 3, and then we're going to start repeating this whole section. So then we'll repeat rows 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 for as many times as your blanket tells you to in the pattern, or as many times as you would like to. And bearing in mind that some of them, because of the size, to get to the size they need to be, will stop maybe at row 4, or they'll stop at row 2. So just watch out for how many repeats and where you are within the sequence. But those 6 rows are the repeat of the set pattern. So go ahead and work as many rows of that as you need to for the size of blanket you're making, and then meet me back here and we'll talk about the border. Right, so I have worked as many rows as I need to for this blanket, and now I'm going to add a really simple border just around the edge using single crochet stitches. So I have the right side of me facing me. I've finished that last row and I have turned, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 1, and then into the full part of each of these stitches across, I'm going to work a single crochet. So here I am then at the end of that row, and what I'm now going to do is rotate so that I can work along the sides of the rows here. And I'm going to carry on working in single crochet, but first of all I'm going to chain 1 to give myself space to move around this corner. And then what we need to do is we need to think of these in sets of 2 rows. So for every 2 rows of half double crochet, we are going to need to fit 3 single crochet into them. So to start with, I'm going to put one into the top of that half double crochet that I've already worked into. So that's 1, and then I'm going to put one into this side of this next stitch here. That's 2. Make sure you catch the whole of the yarn there, and then into the side of that stitch there. So that's 3 stitches worked over those 2 rows. And then I come to the next stitch here, which is this one, and then I'm going to put one here and one here, and that is 2 rows worth for me. So it doesn't really matter, you can place them wherever you like, but make sure you don't add any more than this, because it will then end up giving you a very wavy edge. And if you put too many less, that doesn't make sense, that's not grammatically correct. If you put less in, then it might end up being too tight. So there's no hard and fast rules with how many you have to put in, but just make sure that your blanket will stay nice and flat once you have finished this border. So 3 single crochet along the side of 2 rows that we have here. So carry on working that all the way down the side of your blanket up until you get to the next corner. Then meet me back and I'll show you how we turn and work along the end. So I've worked all the way along that long edge and I'm really happy with how that is sitting. And now what I'm going to do is rotate and work along the other short edge, and this one's nice and easy. We are going to chain 1 to turn our corner, and then we're going to work a single crochet in each of the ends of the stitches. So these were our foundation half double crochets at the beginning, so you've got a front and a back loop there to work through. So that should be the same number of stitches as the width of your blanket that you began with. And you just work this up until the next corner, and then you're going to chain 1, and then you're going to work exactly in the same way as you've done just for this long side by working 2 single crochet into the sides. No, that's wrong, Hannah. You're going to work 3 single crochet into the side of every 2 rows. So go ahead and work that, and then meet me back here when you have got to the beginning of your round. Now I've gone all the way along that long edge, and I'm going to chain 1, and here I am arrived back at that first stitch that we had. And for round 2, I'm not going to slip stitch to join, I'm just going to work straight into that first stitch, and I'm going to work into just the back loop only of it. So I'm going to begin here with a single crochet in the back loop of that stitch, and then you've got your chain 1 here for your corner. And this is a great point to grab a stitch marker that's a million miles away from me and put a marker in that first stitch that you have there, and that will mark the beginning of the round for us. And so we now have plain sailing up until we get to the chain 1 space here at this first corner. So you're going to work a single crochet in the back loop only of each of these stitches along here. Get your hook the right way round, Hannah. There we go. Here we are at that chain 1 space of our corner, and we're going to work 2 single crochet into that chain 1 space there, and that will help us go round this corner. Then turn your blanket, there's an awful lot of it now, and we're now going to work a single crochet in the back loop only of each of the stitches along this long edge. So make sure you catch that first one there that comes after the chain 1 space. And that's all there is to it for going around on this round. We're going to work 2 single crochet into each of the corner chain 1 spaces, and then every single crochet from the previous round gets a single crochet in the back loop only. So go ahead and finish this round and meet me back when you get to your first stitch again. So I'm back at the start now, and I have worked the 2 single crochet into that chain 1 space here. And now for the next round, I'm going to do a very similar thing. I'm going to work a single crochet into the back loop only of each of the stitches up until, moving your stitch marker, hang on a second when you've done that, up until we get to the 2 single crochet here of the corner. And so I'm going to put a single crochet in the back loop here of that first single crochet that we have, then I will chain 1, and then I will put a single crochet in the back loop only of the next one. So for that, those corners where we have 2 single crochet in, that's what we will do. We'll do a single crochet, chain 1, and then a single crochet in the next one. And that will then mean that you can repeat those 2 rounds for as many rounds as you would like to create the border to be the depth that you would like it. Now for this one, I don't think I'm going to do too many more, but I will work a couple more rounds, and then that will be my blanket complete. Then you'll just need to break your yarn, weave in your ends, and then block to measurements if you feel that it really does need blocking. But I'm not sure that this one really does. I think I might just gently tease it out to make sure that it's sitting nice and level. So that's all there is to it. I hope you've enjoyed making this super easy chunky crochet blanket with me. Do come and find me across all my social media channels, and do show me the blanket that you make. And if you make anything else within this mystical collection, then I'd love to see those as well. Thank you so much for joining me, and do come again soon.